Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. It's me, Noel, here giving a quick reaction to the huge fight that was seemingly all but confirmed last night after the huge Ring 4 card in Saudi Arabia that David Benavidez, the two-division world champion, will move up to cruiserweight in his next fight on May 2nd to challenge Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez for Zurdo's WBA and WBO cruiserweight titles in a huge fight for both men's legacies and also for the across the Mexican community in America stateside. You've got Zurdo, the Mexican Zurdo Ramirez. You've got David Benavidez of Mexican heritage himself, and it's massive. Yeah, two multi-weight world champions going at it. It was sure to be an absolute firefight. So yeah, I'll be giving my thoughts on that one and who I think might come out on top. But before we get into today's video, please don't forget, we'd really appreciate it if you could drop a like on the video first of all. Subscribe to the channel if you're not doing so already. Please hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. Follow us on all social media platforms as well. We've always great content to suit whatever needs you have for all the big fights. We've got reviews, previews, breakdowns, interviews, betting tips, all sorts. So yeah, whatever you need around boxing, we have it on the channel. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, and let's get into things. So yeah, David Benavidez fresh off a big win. A dominant performance against Anthony Yarde last night in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia to retain his WBC light heavyweight title. Walked down, brutalised, bullied, bloodied Anthony Yarde and got the stoppage, a very impressive stoppage in round seven against an opponent who took Arthur Beterbiev 8 rounds and of course Sergey Kovalev 11 rounds. So, a statement win for David Benavidez getting that stoppage earlier than those names I mentioned could do it. So yeah, really impressive performance. And now, of course, as he announced after the fight, moving up again across the former super middleweight. Couldn't get a big fight um, with Canelo Alvarez, so moved up, won world honors at 175, and now seemingly, he won't be getting the two top dogs, Bivol or Beterbiev, at 175. So he's moving up again in search for chasing greatness, this time against the unified cruiserweight champion, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. And yeah, this is a really fascinating fight. So I think it's a firefight, to be honest. I think it's a potential fight of the year, this one. It really is. As I mentioned, it's a huge fight for the Mexican community in America. It'll likely be Las Vegas, which is a bit of a shame. This fight would have been massive in Mexico. You'd imagine it would have done good numbers there. It would have been an electric atmosphere, but Vegas, it's close enough. It should be a real barn burner of a fight. I just think the styles are meshed so well. You've got Zurdo Ramirez, he puts his shots together well. Of course, he's a good combination puncher. Not the quickest, not as quick as he used to be at 168 or even 175, but still a very formidable opponent. And he's had a good run at cruiserweight now. He's beat Arsene Goulamarian, unbeaten at the time. Chris Billum Smith, formidable, big, strong cruiserweight, and bullied him from start to finish in that fight. Really bloodied him and busted him up. So yeah, he beat Uniel Dortigos last time out, former world champion. An uninspired performance. I thought he looked poor. I thought he looked out of shape in that one. Laboured to a kind of a decisive decision win, but Dorticos and a pass his best. Dorticos um, was not out of that fight totally. He had success in that one, but yeah, as I say, Zurdo looked out of shape there, and of course, it's the big question. Similar to David Benavidez, you look at him in his last few fights at cruiserweight, Zurdo, and think, how did he ever make super middleweight, even big at light heavyweight? But yeah, up at cruiserweight now, and like Benavidez, looks maybe a bit fleshy up there. But last time out against Dorticos on the Jake Paul undercard, of course, I thought he looked very fleshy. He looked very soft in that one, and it showed. I thought he was very slow, very plodding in that, but got the job done. So yeah, been on a really good run of form. And then you've got David Benavidez, big man as well. Struggled to make the 168 limit. Even looked big at light heavyweight last night himself. So it's going to be very interesting to see what David Benavidez looks like at cruiserweight. He is big enough. He's big enough to do it. So maybe we see the peak of David Benavidez at cruiserweight. Who knows? But I'm very excited to see Benavidez kind of continue to chase big legacy defining fights. He hasn't been at light heavyweight that long. However, if you've got Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, the unified world champion Bivol or Beterbiev, they're the only two names that are worth anything to David Benavidez, and they're both seemingly tied up in an impending trilogy. So, he's not in the mood to wait around any longer. He waited long enough for a potential Canelo fight that didn't materialise. So, he's not in the mood to waste time. With softer touches, there's people talking about maybe a potential Callum Smith fight, but that really doesn't get the kind of the juices flowing for boxing fans, and it doesn't do much for David Benavidez's legacy. The only two that would do anything for him at 175 are the two big dogs, and it'd be at least, at the very least, a year, probably 18 months before that has any possibility of happening. So going up the cruiserweight and facing arguably, well, at least the second best cruiserweight in the planet in Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. So hats off to David Benavidez, chasing greatness there. And Zurdo, it's a big fight for Zurdo Ramirez, of course. The top dog in that division, Joy Apatoya, in search of a huge fight himself. Who knows who's to blame as to why a Zurdo Apatoya fight hasn't happened so far, but that's for another day. That's a whole another story. But this is kind of, this is the next best you could have hoped for, Zurdo, against David Benavidez. And yeah, in terms of the fight itself, as I said, it's a fight of the year candidate for 2026, Cinco de Mayo weekend. Going to be a huge event for the Latin American community in the States. But in terms of a winner, I'm going to have to go David Benavidez. I think there's nothing Zurdo does better than Ramirez, than Benavidez, and that's what it comes down to. As I say, Zurdo, good combination puncher. Not the quickest feet, but relatively fast hands, can mix his shots up well, the head and body. He's durable, very durable fighter, and he is heavy-handed. Although he's not been a knockout artist at cruiserweight yet, but Benavidez up until last night hadn't been really carrying his power up to light heavyweight, but all of Zurdo's fights at cruiserweight have gone the distance and convincing decision wins. So, but he is still heavy-handed, and who knows? David Benavidez coming up one more weight division. How how is that power going to carry up again? Who knows? But I just think David Benavidez has, Zurdo doesn't have better feet than him. Even though he has fast hands, he's certainly not as fast as David Benavidez for such a big man. So fast, such fast hands. We seen it again last night. Blinding combinations, blinding hand speed for such a big fighter. So I just think whatever Zurdo does, David Benavidez is going to be able to match him. And I don't think Zurdo's feet are good enough to kind of keep him on the outside and pot shot him, I suppose, hurt him, sting him enough to keep David Benavidez from swarming him and coming off, stepping off him. So I just think it's going to be fought in the pocket. And I think David Benavidez can pick Zurdo off in the pocket for a decision win here for me. I think, if Zurdo fights like he did against Dorticos, he could get stopped, to be honest with you. But, the fights against Billum Smith where he looked fantastic. Say what you want about Billum Smith. Billum Smith, a big, strong, fully fledged cruiserweight. And Zurdo, the naturally smaller man, bullied him. And bullied him in that fight, beat him up badly. So, he can hold his own against strong men in the pocket. Physically he can hold his own in there, but the speed is going to be the difference for me, and the shot selection. He's not going to be able to live with Benavidez's speed. He's going to have to take five or six to land one or two in this one, and I think it's just going to add up. But I think Benavidez will have enough in him to get a decision win. Would it overly shock me if Zurdo won? No, I don't think so. I think he's an underrated fighter. I don't think he really gets the credit he deserves, but he is very capable. But yeah, I just think Benavidez is special. special talent, and I think he gets it done here on points to become a three-division world champion and a unified cruiserweight world champion. So if he was to beat Zurdo in his first fight at the weight, that wow, that'd be a big win, big win. And then who knows what happens after that? It could be Joy Opetaia. The winner of this fight will be the big name that Joy Opetaia needs if he stays around that cruiserweight. And David Benavidez would be more than welcoming of a Joy Opetaia fight if he doesn't end up fighting Paterbi ever before. It'd be hard to see him get back down to 175 after, even if he, chooses to. So I think we could very likely see David Benavidez and Joy Opetaia next after the Zurdo fight. And who wins that. I'm a big fan of Joy Opetaia, but this is a conversation for another day. I should mention, of course, as well, which I've neglected to mention in this video, that Zurdo does have a fight in the meantime, defending his titles on January 16th against Robin Safar, and he needs to win that, of course, to keep this big fight from, still happening. So, Robin Safar, no disrespect, Zurdo should kind of pass that test comfortably, and then it's all systems go for May 2nd. But yeah, huge fight, fire fight, potential fight of the year. I'm going for David Benavidez by decision. That was just my quick reaction to the big news. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. How excited are you for this fight, and who do you have winning? Do you have Zurdo winning? Are you going for Zurdo? Or are you going for David Benavidez to do it again? Let us know what you think in the comments. And as always, don't forget, please drop a like on the video first of all. And as I said at the start of the video, give the YouTube channel a subscribe if you're not doing so already. And follow us on all social media. Always great content on a regular basis. We've got reviews, previews, interviews, big fight breakdowns, betting tips. If you fancy a dabble, just check us out on YouTube. We really appreciate that. And yeah, until next time, take care.